Okay, you tell me when you're ready to fire it up, so we're good? Okay. Our brief recess is over, and I wanted to thank Gina and Joanne and Kathleen, or whoever organized all the goodies. Thank you very much. And I also want to thank you to Ronnie for bringing the homemade chocolate chip cookies. And did everybody meet Shelley Glassberg, Arnie's wife? Did everyone meet?
Yeah.
So we know the face. And this is Kathleen. She's our Water Conservation and Information Authority. She knows everything about how to save water and how to do it right.
We're gonna need it too.
And did you meet Joe Gastino, the superintendent, also, of the district?
Need it too.
Okay, so anyway, we'll pick up where we left off at the consent calendar. And it looks like Director Michelson, now Vice President Michelson. You reviewed the financial statement?
Yes, I did, and I found them to be in order.
Are there any items that any directors would like to pull off to discuss or go over or go further? Then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
So it's been moved by Director Flint, seconded by now Vice President Michelson, that we approve the consent calendar. Could you call the roll, please?
Vice President Michaels,
Thank you, I guess.
I guess, right? Director Reynolds is absent. President Reynolds, I don't know, it happens next month, right?
It's, I don't know.
I think it happens immediately.
Yeah, I think so
It's up
too,
to the
yeah.
board. I
Yeah.
mean, some boards switch it.
Well, they get down.
I was unseated one time.
Yeah, you, if anybody knows.
I was unseated one time, yeah, actually.
Well, we'll just keep it the way it is for the
Yeah.
night, huh?
Well, I'm not gonna give up the gavel.
That was gonna be a fight.
Director Flint,
Yes.
Director Glassberg,
Aye.
President Coverdale.
Now, we could institute kind of a nonverbal one where you just go like that.
That's okay.
Okay. I would like to approve it as well. Were there any meetings attended, or are there director comments that any directors would like to
Yeah,
make?
I did attend a Boston meeting. The glass half full or half empty? You never know at Bosca. They brought in the head engineer for the specialty is dams, obviously, for the, God, the hell's the name of the dam? The Calaveras Dam. You know, they keep finding historical slides, so that they keep having to re-engineer the dam infrastructure, more excavation than they ever imagined. I mean, we're talking, I don't know what they're doing with the spoils. I mean, it is one, and they're, the pressure grout, the cracks where the old geology meets the new geology. I mean, it is one ginormous undertaking, and we're probably, end of the decade, I don't know, at this point. I mean, it's, 2017, 2018, and, to me, that's 2020, if we're lucky. So it's kind of depressing hearing that, because originally when I did go on to Bosca, I mean, I kind of did the math, and the WISP should have been done about now. But now I'll be in my fourth term, and maybe fifth term, God willing, before the WISP is completed. However, the good news is a lot of the projects have been completed. The Bay Division, the tunnels, so there has been a lot of improvement. This is the seismic reliability that brings water down from the Sierras. So, I don't know. I should probably stop. I'm not sure, and I know there's a little question of really what Bosca's role is morphing into. I would like to see a little more oversight, a little more contractor oversight. And, if you read the newspaper and you, being a lifelong resident, you do know the players, and Willie Brown still has his finger on the WISP. And his favored contractors are still doing an enormous amount of the work. He's still picking the general managers for SFPUC. For better or worse, it's just San Francisco politics as usual. A little disappointing to see that, but I'll stop here. Thanks.
Yeah, Calaveras Dam is, I was able to tour that dam project, and the wildest thing is that the original watershed areas, they're actually disposing of a lot of the soil, is just building up the perimeters of that shoreline to be able to hold more water. And the scale of the trucks and machines that are moving material there was mind-boggling to me. I mean, the largest caterpillars on the planet, there would be one pulling an earth mover and one pushing the back of the earth mover to get the thing to be able to scoop the volume of material. And they were moving like ants on an anthill. I mean, it was just, you know, it was the largest amount that you've ever seen moved, and it was nothing. You know, and then they'd blow off another load of dynamite and all this rock would tumble down and they'd go after it. It was the wildest thing I've ever seen. It was just,
Who's responsible for that dam? Is it the state?
you mean the construction quality of the dam?
No, who oversees the Calaveras Dam? Is it
Oh,
the
San
state?
Francisco PUC.
Oh, it is the city.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and the danger is, especially now as we're dry, the danger of Calaveras is there's actually a shortage of holding capacity because the dam's not operable. So there's sort of a deficit in the system, and that's why it was so politically wild when there was going to be this water transfer with Modesto and Turlock, I think, or was it Modesto only? There was going to be a water transfer, and then there were a lot of people that voted against it because they felt that that water would be purchased unnecessarily because it wasn't going to be an optional transfer. We were going to have to do it every year, and they were saying, well, why do we need it? And now as the Calaveras gets pushed back, that water may end up being pretty critical water, and we can't get it anymore. That deal's off.
The goal is more local storage here in the case of a seismic event interrupting the transmission from the Sierras. But the dam has never, face of the dam has never been seismically stable enough to get certification to, where they operate about a third or so.
Mm-hmm.
So they've never actually been able to fill it to the top. They all operate at a third capacity. So if they could, so now they want to go beyond the original capacity, and if they could ever get that, face of that dam finished, we would have a lot more, local storage in the event of a
Is it an
breakage.
earthen dam then? Or is it-
Well, it's kind of both. There's the foundation of it is structural. It's the wildest thing I've ever seen. They actually are drilling down, I can't remember what the diameter was, very small, like 8 inches or something like that, and then sticking metal in and pressure grouting these things as they drill. And it looks sort of like a fine comb, like you'd comb your hair with, underneath the dam foundation. It was the wildest thing I've ever watched. There's a guy that just sits on a computer and constantly reads out the pressures of the drilling and the pressures of the grouting and has to statistically make sure that all those numbers are matching the design criteria. I mean, it's just fascinating, the level of
Yeah, they brought in one of the
construction.
leading dam engineers in the nation to see this through because they realized that they were just kept running into problems. So he gave us a presentation. It was a pretty fascinating presentation, but it's just like,
Well, you'll get a chance to see it, man. It's gonna be going on for a long time.
yeah, and you can see, and it's the same subcontractor for, infamously did the airport expansion, Tudor Saliba, and there was a lot of graft going on that project, and it was in the papers. I mean, it was common knowledge.
But the scariest thing about it was, it's endangered species habitat, right? So there's all this really difficult work environment. And then it was highly inaccessible. It's just a little 2-lane road that winds up to where the construction site is. And what was amazing about it is they needed to do some geological review prior to the design, and so they flew with helicopters, these drill rigs, into position, and they drilled, I can't remember how many feet, but extremely deeply down into this mountain. So they felt that they completely had understood the geology enough to let a contract to do the excavation in one portion where they were going to build the dam. But what happened was, as they started to dig, they started finding all these historical faults. And so the soil isn't as stable as it should have been. And I can't remember what they spent millions of dollars drilling, and all the geology is bunk.
Yeah, they found one historical slide. They got through that, then they found a second one. And contractors love the word extras. That's their favorite word.
Well, what did Jack, the first one, I think, was an extra 159 million, or?
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
to
the cough-ups are huge, so it's pretty scary. It really is. And it's not a maybe, it's not like, going on the wrong trail for a few feet and turning around, that's gotta be it. Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, to know that you can be a part of something like that's pretty phenomenal. 4.7 billion, soon to be, what, 5.9? No, I'm just kidding.
Fortunately, they saved enough money of the 4.7 billion upfront. A lot of the bids went out during the depths of the recession, so a lot of them came in under engineering estimates. So the hope was that this project would come in at 4.7 or less. Now we're bumping into the 4.7 plus with the overages on Calaveras.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to be part of that. Pretty exciting.
Digress here. Thanks.
Yeah, anyway, so, other meetings attended, anything else? No? General business tonight, we're gonna talk about Crystal Springs spare pump, talking about Hetch Hetchy Water.
Joe will tell you about the Crystal Springs
Thanks.
spare pump.
Thanks, Joe.
We're there already?
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
Yeah, as you know, Crystal Springs is our main pump station during high demand periods. Actually, it's all the time at this point until we get the Stone Dam pipeline repaired. And the pumps themselves are very hard to come by. There's a long waiting period if, in the event that we ever need to replace one, if one fails. And we have no spare for we have two 350 horsepower pumps and one 500 horsepower pump. Last year, we got the pumps themselves for the 500 as a spare, and now we are proposing to get one spare 350 horsepower pump in the unlikely episode of failure during a high demand period. If we do not have a spare that we could install within, say a week, we would possibly have to call for water rationing during high demand periods, which would be July, August, September, October. So we went out and we procured 2 bids. They were under what we had allotted in our CIP for these units. So we proposed to procure the 16-stage vertical pump from Pump Repair Service Company at a cost of $40,000.
I think it's a great plan to have a backup.
Yes.
And typically, it's Pump Repair Service is who we call to do the work for us out there anyway, so this.
Yes, they're very familiar with.
Yeah, so this makes sense. Unfortunately, they were the low bidders, so that's good news. Now, do these things, they'll just sit in a crate, ready to go? I mean, do they need to be spun once in a while?
Yes,
or-
absolutely, and that's part of our routine. When we go up to Crystal Springs every day. If Crystal Springs isn't running, we go up there every other day or once or twice a week. And that's part of the routine for the operator is to go and just spin it a little bit.
Okay.
Part of is, they spend 2 hours up there going through everything.
Good, thanks.
They keep, we were very proud of this plant, and then we keep it running very well.
Good, thank you.
So the spare pump that you're gonna buy is housed there at the
Yes.
Crystal Springs facility, and the cost is just the equipment itself, right?
Yes.
So if the current one fails and has to be replaced by the one that you're buying, then would that be something that our staff would do, or do you call somebody in?
We would call a pump repair to do that. That's a highly specialized type of work. We would call the crane company, of course. They'd have to come out. These things have to be, they're pretty long. And they have to be dropped in through the skylights.
Yeah, it's gonna be really exciting, because you guys, I'm sure soon will
Tours
go on
are
a
in
tour.
order, yeah.
Right.
and see it'll blow your mind. Yeah, it's a 140-foot deep vertical shaft that connects into the tunnel that goes under Crystal Springs Reservoir. Is it, how many feet, 605
About
feet?
600 feet from the bottom of the shaft, from the pumps.
Out under the lake, 2 holes drilled through the bottom of the lake. It's a pretty exciting project, pretty unbelievable that the district could build that project or contract it. Yeah, and they're doing a great job maintaining it. I'll be glad when you guys can check it out. It's
Yeah.
pretty wow. You don't get to go in anymore, like the good old days. Anybody want to make a motion?
So move.
I'll second that.
So it's been moved by Director Glassberg, seconded by Vice President Michelson, that we approve the price of $40,000 and some odd dollars with, sorry, $40,671.23 Pump Repair Service Company. All those in favor signify by saying aye, or do you want to call roll?
Whatever you prefer.
Oh, you better.
Oh, I wanna hear Vice President Michelson.
Even with that voice.
You missed it, you missed it.
Aye.
Director Flint.
Aye.
Director Glassberg.
Aye.
President Coverdale.
Aye. No longer president, I'm just a rookie now, I'm like director. Okay, thank you very much. Next item is proposed amendments to the Coastside County Water District Indoor Water Use Efficiency Ordinance. And Kathleen, welcome.
Thank you.
It's nice to see you early in the meeting.
Thank you, yeah.
We might let you carry right on, would you like to?
And get to 2 for 1?
Would you like it, a twofer?
Sure.
Okay, Merry Christmas.
So good evening. Staff is proposing to amend the district's indoor water use efficiency ordinance. And we're asking the board to set a date for the public hearing to consider the amendments for January 14th, 2014 at 7 p.m. So our regular board meeting. So just for background, our current ordinance was adopted in May of 2010. It became effective on January 1st, 2011. Since that time, the district has reviewed 140 building plans for compliance with the ordinance, and we've performed about 30 compliance inspections on completed projects. The amendments that staff is proposing are to align the ordinance with the 2013 California Plumbing Code, which becomes effective on January 1st. To align the ordinance with new EPA water sense efficiency standards, and to clarify definitions and standards based on 3 years of experience implementing the ordinance. So just trying to clean up some of the verbiage on it. So this ordinance applies to projects that involve new or expanded water service for new construction, remodels, and existing construction. So like one example of existing construction that seems kind of odd for building plans is so an existing home that is on a well that would like to be on our system. So this ordinance would apply in that situation. So it's existing construction. They wouldn't need any building plans from the city or county. It's just a requirement we would have if they wanted to get a service connection with the district. So the ordinance, it targets residential and commercial plumbing fixtures, appliances, and devices and other end uses. And it also has requirements for metering. So with the board's approval, the public hearing will be set for January 14th at 7 p.m. to allow public comment and to consider the proposed amendments for the indoor water use efficiency ordinance. So if you have any questions, I can take your questions.
Questions?
Need a motion to set the hearing?
So is there a motion to set the hearing for
Yes.
January 14th?
I'd make that motion.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Director Flint and seconded by Vice President Michelson that we schedule a public meeting on January 14th, did you say, at a regular
14th at
meeting at
7.
7 o'clock, to review the water efficiency ordinance modifications, the amendments.
Right.
Any discussion, or?
Just one
Sure.
procedural question. So if the public hearing is held at the next meeting on January 14th, and then after the public hearing, will the board be considering a motion to approve the changes?
Yes,
At
at
that
that
time.
meeting, at that
Okay.
time. We'll close the public hearing and then the board can deliberate whether they want to approve
Thank
the
you.
amendments or not. And then if they are approved at that January 14th meeting, they will become effective January 15th, that very next day.
Oh,
And it'll be published.
No fooling around.
Well, it's not a new ordinance, we're just amending.
Yeah, it's-
Right.
Yeah, there wasn't that much red print on
No, not
Page.
too much.
the, yeah, just the critical part in the table. But, you know, feel free to come to that meeting also with modifications that you might propose or like to see us. It'll be open for discussion and public input. Tonight, we're just scheduling the hearings.
right.
Right.
Would you like to call the roll?
Vice President Michelson,
Oh, yeah, sounds so good. No, yes.
Director Flint,
Yes.
Director Glassberg, Director Coverda.
Yes. Do you actually hear the vice when she says that? It was just a question.
I just imagined.
I just wondered. You know. Okay, and next on our list is is your report, and I don't know if we want to hear this report. It's not that positive.
Not that positive, so we'll skip ahead to my water resources, I guess, report, which is what is 9B, is that?
Yes, it's 9B.
So, I just was giving you an update on the latest forecast for the winter, and it's an experimental forecast, but it is calling for a dry winter. And, so it looks like we will be entering into a third consecutive dry year, which is never good, then when we have consecutive. dry
That's
years.
why Bob wanted off this board.
No, it's,
So,
do what I will, but you guys,
figure it out.
You guys deal with it.
So I attached the press release from the Department of Water Resources, which goes into a little bit more detail about the forecast. But other forecasts that we've had too have also been similar with the dry outlook, so, but there's always hope for a miracle March.
Yes.
There's always hope, but it looks like we're gonna be entering a third dry year, so that's the bad news.
I find weather forecasting to be one of the most fascinating activities on the planet.
It's a
you know?
mystery, I
Yeah,
think.
so I think it definitely is.
There's a lot
You
of
got a
factors.
50-50 chance of being right, you know?
And
And you don't get fired when you're wrong.
it's a wonderful job.
Yeah, meteorologists are great.
Oh, I'm telling you.
I was gonna mention, though, that the Farmer's Almanac says this is gonna be a wet winter, so,
Yeah, so.
I'm predicting a very wet winter.
yeah.
I say we go with that.
Let's take a second opinion, you know? Did they ever use the European model for these kind of forecasts? Kinda like the hurricanes?
Not that I know of. I'm not an expert in weather forecasting, but I'm not familiar with the European model.
Well, we would like you to do some research on cloud seeding.
Yeah, they used to use silver, right? Silver nitrate. I don't know if
Silver
they use
iodide.
that anymore.
Iodine, yeah.
All right, yeah. So I don't know what they're using these days, but they are talking about it. But you gotta have clouds to seed. You gotta have storms coming through with some moisture for it to work, so.
Well, thank you for the report.
Thank you.
We won't shoot the messenger.
Okay, great.
Thanks. Merry Christmas. And the next item on our agenda is General Manager, who is deferred to the operations report. Is that correct?
Well,
Did
I
I
didn't
read that right?
have a write-up. We figured
Oh.
a few pictures would be worth more than the words, so.
Oh, we love
haven't
pictures.
shown you any pictures for a
Yeah,
while,
yeah, we
so
got all these
have been-
TVs and we haven't used them in a
Yeah,
while.
we have been
love
doing some
pictures.
things out there that are worth looking at, so Joe and I put these pictures together. One of the major projects, we got two major projects going on right now. The El Granada Tank 2 project and the Cabrillo pipeline replacement project, phase 2. Yeah, that's not too exciting, but El Granada Tank 2 is kind of interesting.
wow.
Most of you are familiar with this. El Granada Tank 2 is on a very small site that was acquired from Bob Rathborn's parents in the sixties, early sixties, I think 1963. The district acquired that piece of property from the Rathborns. I guess they owned a lot of property in the development up there. You can see it's a very steep and small site, very difficult site to work on. It's one of the reasons that the bids came in higher than we expected. So the contractor's been working fairly slowly. One of the things that they have to do is set up a temporary tank in order to take the tank out of service. So they got this temporary tank, and you can see it's kind of a big tank.
Yeah.
Wow,
And
how'd you
they
fit that
hadn't
in
really
your
thought
car?
about how to get it in there, and it took them, this occasioned about a 3-week delay in the project while they tried to figure out how to get this thing in there.
It doesn't roll down the hill.
No, and it's heavy, so
It was kind of a shock.
So
How many
they,
gallons is that tank right there?
12,000?
Yeah, 12,
Yeah,
13,000.
12,000.
Do we own it now, or do they
Yes, it'll
loan
be,
it
Yes, we
to
it'll
us?
be temporarily there, and it will move to some other site, so they'll have to
We'll
remove
use
it.
it for when we refurbish Al's tank.
Nice. What's a tank like that cost, 12,000 gallon tank?
Was that, I don't know right off the, right, 25,000 comes to my mind, but I can't be positive on that.
Not cheap, anyway. So they had to get a very large crane and lift this tank over all of the, finally after 3 weeks of, I guess, calling various crane companies, they got Biggie or Sheedy to come out.
Yeah.
Something, it took a very large crane, because it's a long reach and they had to go up over all the power lines. You can imagine how exciting that was.
They didn't hit the cell tower, did they?
Sitting there all of a sudden, what is-
And then set it on a very small pad in the back. Here's, this is another shot of, I think they got that lift to try to put the tank in, and they weren't successful at that. It sits on this tank right in the back corner of the property,
Wow.
that pad they poured there. So
Wow.
that will be the temporary tank while the tank's out of service. So you can see they're getting pretty close. You can appreciate how constrained the site is. This is the storm drainage system for the site. That's the back fence, and it drops off pretty steeply from there. So difficult site, but an essential one. Here's one of the problems we have with the neighbor's property. When this site went in, when the tank went in, I don't think there was anything on either side of it. The houses went in the mid-70s. And over time, the house on the west side, or I guess the ocean side, the downhill side, folks have piled stuff up against the chain link fence. So they've used a chain link fence as sort of a retaining wall, and now that we have a little bit of a challenge in dealing with that side of the properties. These are all things that make projects expensive, and this is gonna be a significant change order. So you can see that there's quite a lot of stuff up above the fence, and we don't want the neighbor's deck and all of his structures and everything to fall into our property. We've got, we're constrained enough on space as it is, so that's a problem that we're working to solve right now. Here's a look at, so that's the El Granada Tank 2 project. Here's another project we've been working on. We've talked about this a little bit, the Stone Dam temporary pipeline. The reason we're not able to be on Pilarcitos Reservoir now, even though Pilarcitos has quite a bit of water in it, is that we can't get enough water through our temporary pipeline. This will give you an idea of why. The old pipe, our original pipe, the one that we've abandoned, went straight down the hill to the right below where this riser comes off. So its elevation was fairly low there. To connect the temporary pipe, we had to come up over this wall, and you can see that fancy pipe support we had there, made of bags of Quikrete. There's very little hydraulic head for us to work with here, and it's the pipe, the water is backed up where our turnout is by a structure that's down the road that we'll look at in a minute. You can see the pipe goes down the road, and you can kind of see that it goes downhill there. So unfortunately, it's great when a pipe goes downhill. There's John Davis walking down the pipe. But the elevation that we have to work with is determined by the weirs in this structure. This is an old structure, dates back to the beginning of the century or early 20th century, not this century, the previous century. And this is a structure that diverts water down into the Crystal Springs Tunnel. They dug a tunnel that goes down to Lower Crystal Springs Reservoir, so they can divert water from Pilarcitos down into the other watershed, Crystal Springs Reservoir. And that valve there is what shuts off the pipeline from Stone Dam. PUC didn't really understand the hydraulics, so we hired a surveyor to go in and shoot all of the elevations all the way from Stone Dam down to this structure. So we created, for us and for the PUC, an accurate record of what all the elevations are. And so it turns out that the weirs in this structure are just a little bit lower than the high point in our temporary pipe. So that makes it very difficult for us to get water through at maximum capacity. So we went up there, and 4 people from the PUC showed up to help us out. That's Dave Briggs on the right. He's one of the assistant general managers of the PUC. And here we are staring down into this structure. And we actually came up with some pretty good ideas. I had some pretty good ideas about how we could solve this problem. We've been trying to figure out how to do this without triggering any environmental requirements for the PUC, because as soon as we sort of cross that threshold, we're in a whole new game, and the PUC doesn't want to go there. So here we are, they're taking all these measurements. And we agreed that the way we should try to do it would be to shut this valve. We can see this valve, this very large valve. It goes way back. It must be, how old, Joe? 80?
In the 1800s.
Yeah,
Oh, my gosh.
yeah, it's a very old valve, and lo and behold, when they tried to close it, which was part of our plan, that framework up on the top that holds that wheel broke. They applied and they broke that, so the valve wouldn't close. So that's where we are now, and the PUC is actually having some pieces machined so that they can repair this valve. So we're hoping that within the next couple of weeks they'll get this repaired and we'll be able to use the Stone Dam pipeline. I think when we're able to close that valve, that we're going to get enough head on our temporary pipeline to get the flow where we want it.
How about a big cork?
Yeah, anything, a balloon.
Angioplasty kind of-
Right.
Don't
But
you?
as I said, when we discussed this last time, the PUC has been really great in working with us on that. They would like us to be able to use water from Stone Dam. One of the other projects we've accomplished recently also, and this is the result of a lot of good work by Joe over, how long have you spent? A couple of years working on the permit for this creek channel project. First getting approval from Fish and Game, then getting a coastal development permit from the county. So in September, we brought in the California Conservation Corps, and there's one of their guys. You can see this is, not exactly office work. They came in and they had a crew of about 15 that cleared this channel, the Denniston Creek Channel, by hand. The idea was that we were going to go in there and clear out tules, and instead of having the flow of the creek diffuse over all this area, reestablish a creek channel that would take the water by our intakes and keep water flowing past our intakes. So they got in there and they spent about a week. Here's Jim Steele, who was kind of the architect of this project and the originator of the idea. He was out there directing the Corps and making sure that they didn't hurt any red-legged frogs or other protected species.
He's
You
our
can see-
biologist.
You can see it's pretty dense. Dense would be an understatement. It was pretty much impenetrable. But they went in, and here's what's happened since they went in and did that. Actually, the stream has now cut a little channel through there, and as we get more flow, it'll continue to cut a channel, and that was the idea. So we feel like it's been kind of successful, at least so far. That's what it looks like now instead of the impenetrable. Actually, you can actually see the stream as opposed to just a big wet area.
Wow.
What's the source of that stream?
It's the Denniston watershed,
Water.
Denniston Creek watershed.
And that's year-round?
Yes.
Yes, in fact, the stream is flowing pretty well right now.
About 1,000 GPM.
Yeah.
Wow.
For reasons that our hydrogeologists like to expound on at length. And there's what it looks like going down into the reservoir pool. It's really cut down into the soil there and formed a channel. So we feel like that's been a pretty successful project, and the California Conservation Corps came in ahead of schedule and under budget, right?
Do we have permits for, do this on an annual basis?
The channelization was only a one-shot deal. But we're still gonna maintain our dredging. As a matter of fact, our 5-year permit expired this year. This is our
Right,
last,
right.
fifth time. So we will be working, I'm gonna try to get a 10-year permit from Fish and Game.
That would be nice.
And I'll be working with the county of San Mateo on that. But as far as channelization goes, we are permitted to go in there and clear out tules by just using hand tools.
Okay. No, 'cause that's about as clear as I've seen it.
But we won't need to, as long as that it flows well. It'll clear itself. The whole problem was that the willows came in there, but now the willows or the tules came in. We cut right through the tules. And as long as there's water flowing now,
They won't reestablish.
they won't reestablish.
Yeah, because this is really as clear as I've seen it. I mean, there are times you look at it, it's like, really scary, the color.
So and then following the completion of that project, we did our annual dredging in October. And that now is just a matter of, what, 3 or 4 days. Pretty
Mhm.
quick. We take
They
out
got it down.
400 cubic yards. And then Joe will tell you about some of his additional projects here. This is
That's Avenue Cabrillo Phase 2. The whole, I guess that would be the southern part of El Granada, we have problematic 2-inch galvanized pipe that is deteriorating. And it's not looped in a lot of cases. And we've had low pressure, low flows. The 2-inch galvanized pipe is really about an inch, at this point, since it's so old. It's now that's about 70 years old. So the project itself was quite expensive to do the entire what we needed. So we divided up into 3 phases, and phase 1 was done last year, and this is phase 2, and this should be done, probably in the month of December, January. Will probably be the project will probably be complete by mid-January. So yeah, Andrini Brothers is working on that, and they do a pretty darn good job.
so the total cost of, there's a 3rd phase yet to come.
Right.
The total cost of this project, just in that one part of El Granada, will approach $1 million by the time we're done. But sorely needed.
This is just clearing around Denniston. That's the perimeter fence around Denniston, and we just cleared out some brush around that fence there. Though this is an interesting thing here. This is the drying bed, one of the 2 drying beds at Nunes Water Treatment Plant. That's our large treatment plant, our 4.5 million gallon per day plant. Those drying beds, when we remove the solids from the water, the turbidity, of course we use alum to do that, and it forms a precipitate, and it's sludge. We remove it through the sedimentation and filtration process, and the thickened sludge goes into these drying beds, and it percolates through into a collection system, and then we recycle it. There's no discharges from the Nunes Water Treatment Plant. Well, that sand has been in operation now since the early 80s, and it's clogging up. The treatment supervisor was telling me this isn't percolating well, so we were doing some exploratory potholing here.
Who's that guy in the middle working real hard?
Yeah, he is working hard.
Low guy on the totem pole. down
Yeah,
the ditch.
the ditch guy, right. So that's one of the things that we are working on now. We're developing some specs. I'm gonna go out to bid for replacement of this this coarse sand and gravel. What they're doing there is finding the underdrain system to ascertain its condition, and we found it to be in good shape, so we don't have to replace the laterals underneath there. We just have to replace the sand and gravel.
What's that yellow rig do?
That is one of the best investments we've made in the last 7 years, I think. That is a combination valve turner, vac truck, valve turner and vac truck. And what they're doing is it actually assists them in sucking out loose gravel from the pit.
Oh, cool.
Odd combination to put in one machine, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, this was a this picture does not really show how awkward it is to operate that valve. That's the Denniston effluent valve. And it was always a manual wheel valve like you see at the bottom of the picture. The operator, it was an awkward position, ergonomically very unsafe. So we purchased this motorized valve to operate it, and also, aside from being now more ergonomically sound, this is a device that can shut automatically in the event that the plant is upset and we would be in danger of violating the Safe Drinking Water Act by low turbidity or high turbidity or low chlorine residual. So it's designed to shut. This was the last part of the Denniston project, the recycle water station.
It's the famous pump.
Now, as I mentioned, we don't discharge any solids or water from the Nunes water treatment plant, our mother plant, so to speak. This is Denniston plant, and we have discharged from there because prior to the improvements that we made, we're limited in bringing water back into that plant. We can only bring back 10% of the flow of the plant. You exceed that, the Department of Public Health kind of frowns on that. So we had to discharge. I mean, we hit a critical mass, and every couple of months we'd have to discharge to the creek. This will keep us from doing that. It's just a vertical turbine pump. The other pump we had was not the right application for this. It was more of a sludge moving pump. This is actually a supernate moving pump, a liquid pump.
So with this, we're not actually discharging water? Is it
We will
being
no longer
recycled?
have to. It recycles it, exactly what I said, bring it back to the beginning of the plant, but we could only bring it back at 10% of the flow.
Oops.
Oh, Periscope.
This is a historical, this has nothing to do with the district, but in a way it remotely does. This is the part of, this is a cistern that was once the water supply for El Granada prior to.
Was this on Deer Creek?
This is on Deer Creek. This is on Sterling's property. I garnered permission from him to go and explore it. It was quite an interesting site. And that's over there, yeah, that's up there off
I
of
can
San Juan.
just barely look down on it and see it from my house, but yeah, I've never seen it this close. This is interesting.
Yes, there's a whole dam there. There's a dam
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I can see the concrete, yeah.
The dam there is as big as the dam at Denniston, really.
Another water supply.
It is, actually, it was a water supply at one time.
We stole the rights?
Well, it's laden with, as
Yeah,
you,
but
as
you
you,
can't build
as
a
you,
house there.
as you may have heard, there was the coliform study into the harbor as to where all this coliform is coming from, and I think it's
Bovine.
It's bovine, and there are definitely a lot of bovines out there. As a matter of fact, when I was walking around, I had to kind of keep one eye open for the bull that was hanging out.
And that's it.
Oh, it's good.
Fantastic.
That's really helpful.
Well, that was my report.
Are there questions for general manager or our superintendent?
The only thing I could think of is how much material do you have to replace for the sludge?
Oh, I haven't quite gotten that yet.
Okay.
Yeah, the actual volume.
Yeah, it looks like it's a lot.
We were budgeted, this year $25,000, and it's gonna cost every bit of that, maybe, $5,000 more, I don't know. The initial, back of the napkin bids are coming in at like around 25 to 30. We'll see. One other thing before I go is, y'all live in the area, and you probably, have you experienced any brown water in the area of Alsace, Lorraine, or over there in the Keyhole area? The pipes definitely need flushed. They need cleaned, and so we will be unidirectionally flushing the greater Half Moon Bay area in January. We're gonna be putting out a public notice rather soon. And we plan on doing it during the month of January. Unidirectional flushing is basically, it's like surgical flushing. We strategically close valves so water flows only in one direction towards the area that you want to flush. It's much more efficient. You use a third of the water you would normally use for conventional flushing, where you just go and open hydrants willy-nilly. So we'll be doing this in January, so I expect to get a lot of phone calls once we get the public notice out, but it's part of the game.
So they're experiencing brown water there now, and
They
flushing
experience brown water if a hydrant is opened too fast and it's open long enough. It's not open long enough to allow the initial sediment to come out. And this normally occurs when the fire department is conducting tests or exercises, or if there is a large main break where a lot of volume of water leaves really fast, and the velocity in the pipes speed up to a point where the sediment that you get in there, rust, etc. It's mainly iron oxides, manganese oxides. It gets stirred up. Normally the water flows in the pipes kind of slow. You don't even notice it. Once that water goes fast, it kicks it up, and then it kicks it up all over the grid. So unidirectional flushing is a very efficient method. It's the most efficient method of removing that sediment. And it's something that has to be done about every 5 years.
But when the water comes out of Orange, it's perfectly safe.
It's rust.
Just don't wash your sheets in it.
Unless you want us to buy you new ones. I just had a quick question, Miramontes Point Road. How big a section do you think this soil is corrosive?
Between Al's tank and the Miramontes tank. So essentially from the Moon Ridge development up to the end.
Oh, it's on that side. Oh, okay. Oh, I thought.
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was.
No, not on the Ritz-Carlton side.
Oh, okay, okay.
No, and what we suspect this was when they were building that road, they brought in soil that shouldn't have been brought in. It's corrosive. It's very corrosive.
Interesting. Okay. All right. No, thanks.
I'm not sure what I'm going to do about it yet.
Yeah. What do you do? Dig it up, wrap the pipe.
That's quite expensive. We may try to induce a current on that to reverse the corrosion. Sacrificial anodes. I have the contractor who did this work is going to give me some proposals. I'm waiting for them now.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Anybody else? Director agenda items, request for future board member meetings. I have one request, and that is based on the dry year prediction. I wonder if we should agendize looking at our procedures in the event that we have a drought and we need to institute water conservation water conservation measures, mandatory restrictions, penalties, and those things. Seems like we better get proactive.
We'll need a new subcommittee member too. Bob was on that committee with me.
Yeah, I'll let our current president make his selections.
Well, we did, the board approved a stage 1 water shortage declaration at the last meeting. And we have now we've met with a couple of consultants for rate studies, so we're pursuing the rate studies. We've got a proposal we've been working with our current software vendor on modifications. So we've got a number of things going, which we'll report on next time.
Great, thank you. And am I allowed to make a little summary comment of my presidency, or does that have to be agendized? Okay. In summary, I'd like to tell everyone at the board, especially the new members, welcome. And I'm just so excited to see the way the board of directors is going in terms of the experience and the education of the new members. So I'm just delighted to see the future direction that I know is going to occur. It was my top item this year, and I feel I failed miserably at trying to get a safety connection with the water district to our north, Montero Water and Sanitary. And I just really hope that if there's one thing I can pass as a baton from the experiences and the time I've served on the board to the time that I'll finish up and to the future board of directors, is that we all dance around when there's no emergency. And whenever there's an emergency, we all panic and we look back and we wonder why we didn't do more. And I, for one, firmly believe that to become water independent as a community on the Coastside has got to be the highest priority of the district. We're in a very fortunate position in that we're kind of moving into a phase where there aren't a lot of controversial projects, and there's going to be a lot of maintenance of the system that will go on. But I, for one, believe that what Chris Tollig said in a meeting here is right, that if we could actually engineer the ability to connect to the Hetchy system up to the north coast through Montero's district, having them participate or not, if we could have a circular main line to the Hetchy system as a backup, and if we could pursue actively making sure that we can share back and forth our local water supply, I think that's the most important thing we can do for the community. It's not popular. There are people on the board that don't feel that it's important, and I just feel disappointed at the lack of progress in this light. There's a new board of directors, a big change in the board to the north, and I just would welcome them in the new year to be more open to communicating with us and working with us on establishing a way to build a physical connection so we can share water in the event of an emergency and not rely on some crazy idea of water trucking. We can do it, it's done, but I think it's just, in my opinion, it's sad that we can't do a better job of that. And the second thing is, I hope that we reprioritize recycled water on the coast, because the biggest water supply that's laying there ready to be utilized in this community is recycled water. The plant's ready, it's in a good shape. There are improvement projects that could make it more viable. Distribution's gonna be an impossible and very difficult process, but I think the sooner we get started making sure that we can protect ourselves and our neighbors, the smarter we are. And you look at something like a typhoon in the Philippines and it sobers you up. Imagine what those people would do for a glass of water, fresh water. And I don't know what's going to happen here on the coastside. I can't predict it. But God forbid that we have an emergency before we're prepared to deal with it. That's the way I feel about it. So enough said. I can't thank you enough for allowing me to be president. I was unseated from this position one time at a very miserable event, and it feels extremely positive to me to kind of be able to grab a hold of this, see that the district has weathered what I think was a tremendous political storm. And I can tell we're in great hands. We have an amazing general manager. We have a terrific superintendent. The staff people in this district are phenomenal. The field people are cutting edge. And I think we have a system that is really to be proud of. So thank you for the opportunity to serve you. And with that, I'd like to adjourn this meeting.
Thanks.
Now we got an extra horse in the end. Does that mean I can swear on this? Okay, welcome in.